Hello, welcome to Advanced Whipping Tactics. I'm your host, Lil Maos. This is my brother Matt, and today we're going to be testing the Shanghai Surprise.
Lil Maos presents Advanced Weapon Tactics, the show that tests the lethality and survival skills of weapons, with improvised tactics and truthful reviews. Do not try this at home. Viewer discretion is advised.
So today we got the Shanghai Surprise. This was about a $15 blade. So, you know, a lot of people say don't buy cheap stuff, but this, from my experience, has been very strong and a very powerful blade for the price. If you keep in mind that it's only $15 with the shipping, you'll get a great blade out of it. But if you keep in mind that it's kind of crappy because it is so cheap, then you're gonna have you're gonna notice that it's not the best. But for $15, this is definitely the best value, and it cuts really well for 15 bucks. So, this is stainless steel construction with a black paint over it. It kind of helps with the rust. And Matt, zoom in on the tang, right here. It's a full tang construction, and so this thing really isn't breaking. The only thing that I can see breaking on this sword is the hilt, and then these two wooden pieces. They look like they can come off very easily, but from my experience, they haven't come off yet. And this cord wrapping is pretty shitty. It needs to be rewrapped, but other than that, it's a very, very good blade. Since it's full tang, it can take a beating, and for 15 bucks, I mean, I haven't found a better sword. It has no distal taper, which means the blade doesn't get thinner as it goes. So, I mean, really it's the same thickness except for here along the blade and then the back edge here. But, you know, it's very sharp on the touch, and I think it's a very good blade for $15. And then the balancing point is about in the middle, which makes sense because it's a scimitar, so more of the weight is up front. So we're going to try the paper test, and then we're going to test it on one of our heads. So we're going to be doing the paper test here on the Shanghai Surprise, and we're going to see how it goes. So I mean, with the stab, it's very sharp. It just cuts up the paper. So it's very good, very sharp blade, and we're going to see what it can do on this head. So one more thing I wanted to point out was, since the tang does go through the sword, if you don't have it cord wrapped, your hands are very greasy, and since it is stainless steel, it shouldn't rust, but if it wasn't stainless steel, I would definitely want to wrap it because the grease in your hands definitely will cause the blade to rust. So we're going to test it on the head and see how it goes. So Matt, you've tested this sword before. You've used it, you've seen me use it, and then you know also that it's very cheap. It's about $15. What are your impressions and thoughts on this blade?
Well, I did test this on wood, and it did go pretty far into it with the grain. I have no doubt that it will at least, you know, go through this rubber, maybe even hit some of the blood pack in there, and maybe even get a decap if we can, because once again, that skull, or that head isn't really tough, so and this is a pretty sharp sword, so
I'm going to go for a 45-degree angle cut right there, and then I'm going to go for a chop down and a decap. Now this is on this wood and it's not very tough, so it'll kind of simulate a real sword in a real battle, because you go to hit someone, they're going to be moving. So we're going to see what it can do. Alright, let me count now.
1, 2, 3.
Is able to cut right through here, all the flesh into the coconut, and look at that. It cracked the whole thing. Cracked the whole entire skull. One strike. Matt, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah.
Say a couple things about this and the first strike. What do you got to say about it, Matt?
Well, I'm not surprised that the first strike really went through it, but that's awesome that it hit the coconut. I had no doubt, and then once again, that is a very cheap, you know, affordable sword. And it did go through our skull, and this is the first time that we're testing this head, so that was pretty impressive strike.
Now that we've seen the decap, you can just see the blood gushing down this guy's face. He's fucked up. This is definitely a one-hit kill. So for 10 bucks, guys, one shot kill if you ever needed to. Now, obviously, you're really never going to need to, but one shot kill if needed. So we're going to test a Dcap, and then we're going to see how it goes from there. I would do the vertical strike, but we already seen what it can do. So we're going to go for the Dcap.
1, 2, 3.
So I kind of missed the neck, but again, you see it went right through the plastic and into the coconut as well. So we're going to try it again for the Dcap. Try the Dcap again. Countdown.
1, 2, 3. So as you can see, it just that shot combined with the first shot. This is where the Dcap shot hit. And if you can see, it tore the face right completely off. And I don't know if you can see that, but right in there is the blood bag that we put. Too bad it didn't. If the hit was just a little bit lower, it would have popped that bag and we would have saw blood go everywhere. But that bag is still intact. It did not hit that. It knocked it right off the post, as you saw. So.
Right, but we did experience some blood loss from the coconut itself when that was hit. And like I said, this is a one-hit kill. Right through the head. Right through the whole skull. It just shattered the whole thing. I mean, why don't you unwrap that just so we can assess that.
Clear.
Clean through. He didn't even pry that open. That was just...
Yeah, I didn't... It came right off.
That was from the...
Just like that.
The first strike. Alright, so we've seen what this can do. One hit kill. Right clean through the entire skull. That guy was... That's an instant kill.
Yeah.
So, what would you have to say about $10 sword and what it can do?
Yeah, it definitely is a good sword for only being $10. And as you saw, the damage on the coconut went straight through the rubber, the newspaper, all stuff like that. And this is actually still pretty sharp. You know, it's pretty sharp. So
very impressive. So, you know, if you're on the market for a really, really cheap sword, you really can't go wrong with this. This thing is really not going to break. And if you're looking for a cheap sword, always just look for full tang. It doesn't necessarily have to be a higher grade of a steel, but like if I were to stab and go against the grain, as it was in, it would surely chip and like just break. But, you know, for normal with the grain strikes, it's a very good sword, and I'm very pleased with it. I'm going to definitely approve this to you. If you want to buy this, the links are in the description, and remember to comment, rate, subscribe.